nice, clear musical signal. But in that same living room, you coexist with radio from all frequencies. You get Radio Havana, Radio Moscow, Radio Beijing. You get all these different frequencies right in your living room. You coexist with all frequencies. But your radio is tuned to just one frequency. Every chemistry book is wrong. Every chemistry book says the universe is not an atom. End of story. Period. Wrong.
It's now been scientifically shown to be proven.
What? 300 of these skulls that were found buried together, and they all have these abnormal heads. And
so my first reaction when I saw this was, oh, but there are some cultures where this is considered beautiful, and cultures actually elongate their skulls.
So if they were to do that, what you're talking about, it would reshape the skull, but it wouldn't change the volume of the brain inside the skull. These are 25% larger and 60% heavier. That
much. 60%.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
Bunch of, long-haired, loincloth, cavemen that built this with ropes and pulleys, and you're told that that stone there fell over. It was the twin of that stone, and it fell over. Right? They were connected at the top, and it broke. And
This gentleman right here.
Thank you, sir. My name is Michael Shore. I'm here in Charlotte. First, it's an honor to have you here with us today. I'm concerned that your decision to allow offshore drilling could have the effect of chilling investment into
All
alternate
theories
sources of
are
energy.
testable,
And I'm interested in
including
what incentives you're going to be proposing to establish the conditions and to stimulate research and development and expansion of that critical sector.
Well, I think that's a great question. We invested in wind, we invested in solar, we invested in biomass, we invested in research and development, we invested in battery technologies. Here's the challenge that we have. We don't yet have the technological breakthroughs that can completely replace fossil fuels. So for the next 10 years, next 20 years, we're still going to be using oil. We're still going to be using coal. We're still going to be using natural gas. We're still going to be using the traditional sources to fuel our cars, to heat our homes, to run our big power plants, etc. Unless somebody here invents something tomorrow, which would be very helpful. And if you have it, let me know.
Wrong.
Hey guys, Tyler Lowfall, April 2nd, 2016. Now, I've been wanting to share this publicly for a while now. This is important, especially as going into summertime or astronomical things that are coming up that are not talked about as well. Kind of pushed me over the edge this week, so. But here's why. We are going to go in an ice age, and
And that is because we have it's nothing we did. It was blamed on carbon dioxide and blah 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 and our fossil fuels. It's astronomical, and it's one of the things. It's methane hydrate. We were told our last pole flip was 780,000 years ago. Well, that's not true. About 4 years ago, they came out with these studies on the LASCHAMP event, and what that is they could tell that we had a brief pole reversal, is what they called it, and that's what I got open right here. When lava hardens, it
freezes its polarity in time. So wherever the magnetic pole was at that time, it gets locked in so that, you know, we can see it now, and that's why we can tell that it wasn't 780,000 years ago. I don't know entirely where they got that. It partially has to do with carbon dating. We originally believed or were told that carbon was a constant, and we've known that to be not true. The carbon levels have more than doubled since we did that alone, and we have recently been told that we can't tell the difference in 65 million year old fossils and 65,000 year old fossils, and I'm going to show you where it's going to probably be 6,500 year old fossils or less. And I know that sounds crazy, but let me show you the science, and then you be the judge. They did the testing. They came out with this new testing. It's like potassium argon testing, where they don't deal with carbon. And now the reason that you can't deal with the carbon, okay, is yes, it does decay at a certain rate, but when elements decompose, they go two directions. They go towards carbon, or they go towards lead. Here's the thing on that, is that, you know, like our metals will decompose and they'll go down into lead, and you can see it astronomically with everything decomposing down into Saturn, and that's where like our garbage disposal is. Our sun has always been pictated as the circle with the dot in it, and it's the same as God, it's the same as the sun, and it's the same as gold. Those three things are always the same. Now, I'm not going to get into the astronomy behind the sun decomposing and creating our solar system different than science says, but gold started at the sun, decompose into Mercury, the planet, it'll get pushed out, and as you become more masculine as a planet, and as the decomposing process becomes, you know, to the next step, it, long story short, becomes something like iron, and it becomes real masculine. The polarity on it would become real strong. If you had a South Pole influence, like a planetary one, it would draw towards it very strongly, break up when it got shocked, just like the God of War with the scar, blow into an asteroid belt, take all the gas, put it out into the gas giants, and then your plutonium, uranium, you know, neptunium, that made it past the gas giants because of its its mass, it would make it past it into our giant frozen water, you know, our big planets. So now let me just scroll on down here. Now, one thing I want to show you during this event. Now, the first reason that I looked at for an event to fill this spot, and I found this was if you look at Petra or Ellora or any of these ancient acoustic, perfectly carved. I mean, we couldn't do them in 100 years. Maybe in 100, we'd need all 99 of them to make these things. And it's let's look at Egypt for instance. Is that like Giza? It's lined up to 1/500th of a degree up true north. That's 40 times better than our Freemasons did our own capital.
There's no way. Impossible. 2.2 million stones. It used to be a jungle. Pull it from 600 miles away and do it in 20 years? I don't think so. There's no way. Not with ropes and pulleys. We couldn't do it with aircraft carriers and barges. Here's one of the catches there is they have like the statues down to 1/1000th of an inch off, like perfect, round, all this. You have the best stone cutters in the planet say we couldn't do it with a computer and a laser, and we just can't do it. So how perfect it is really, really tough there. Now, on this report, I'm going to take this next step because they don't show this here, and I know why. They show it dropping its temperature, okay? When this pole flip happens, now, yes, they have they show the movement of the poles and this and that, and it moves a lot, and it bounces back and forth. There was a little short pole. They suggest 440 years, with about 250 of it was once it was there. And to move, here's the thing: to move a pole, a planetary direction of the electromagnetic field, it takes an outside force. This isn't a meteor hit the world and it just went up in smoke and then flipped over. Why would it flip over? It just settled back down. And again, this is my science. If you ask what you want to find, I mean, I'm more than happy to break it all down. But what happens is you need an outside force, or else it won't go. I mean, why? So here, when you flip the polarity of, we supposedly have 1 trillion million tons of molten iron in our core. When you flip that's going to cause a lot of issues. And so when I was looking at how good these ancients were, and I was like, what would send them underground? And an ice age, a pole flip was there because I thought of that one because it would take that atmosphere away, and if you took the atmosphere away, we'd have radiation problems. So an ice age, super volcanoes blowing up, it would go into an ice age. So when I was looking all this up, and I found the LASCHAMP event, and I found that they suggested that it was 40,000 years ago, plus or minus a couple years, and that fit the spot a lot better, where we already thought that the Egyptian temples might have been older. There's a lot of things that just didn't line up. It made more sense to me that these elongated skulls, these humans that were very technologically advanced, I mean, they didn't just bind wood on their head. They didn't. Okay, their skulls were structured different. They had 60% more massive heads. I mean, to 25% more volume in their brains. They built things we can't build. We progressively got worse. If you look at Egypt, or you look at what's the most advanced, the most perfect, the most massive, the most, I do have a website. It's religionisscience.com, and I break it down and show it like stage by stage, a reverse learning curve. I don't get it, right? And all of these ancient civilizations show that we are on the bottom of the Great Year, or Kali Yunk'e, or whatever those cycles are. And those cycles, just so you know, to figure them out, you have to sit there and go through a lot of it. You can't just guess. They're not dumb people. They all these things, to be acoustic in the right, I mean, they found the right stones and everything. But we had woolly mammoths that we've been pulling right out of ice. frozen solid food still in their mouth. Do you know how cold it would have to be to freeze a woolly mammoth solid? They show right down here you go. We show temperatures below 120 to 140 degrees Celsius. They don't understand where it came from, but it was at the same time. Now I'm going to tell you where it came from. Now, in the 1800s, we had 3,000 tons of methane hydrate that escaped. Methane hydrate, when it's under pressure and it decomposes, at 1 atmospheric pressure, it's fine at 32 degrees. But you go up just a fuzz, and I'm talking like barely, and like a degree, and all of a sudden you need 10, 20, 30, 50 atmospheric pressures to hold it down, or it goes instantly and vaporizes. Now, when something expands, like methane hydrate, and methane hydrate expands 170 sometimes its size from solid to gas. When it does that, it loses a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to do that. And if you know what happens when you exhaust energy, you lose temperature. You have to take the energy from somewhere, and it gets taken from heat. When it expands, and if anybody knows anything about drilling for oil or any of that, they run into this sometimes, and this could like sink a ship. I mean, you're talking it expands so fast, it makes the water boil all over, so now it doesn't have buoyancy, and you could drop a boat. Not to mention you're freezing cold coming out of it. It's turning to ice if it doesn't cap itself back off, and it's flammable. So you have all of these things going on. Now in the 1800s, I mean, 3,000 tons of it dropped the temperature of the planet by 20 degrees for 7 years. That's a lot. 3,000 tons. Now we have 29,000 billion tons estimated on planet Earth. Let me say that again. 29,000 billion tons. And 3,000 tons dropped our core temperature by 20 degrees. 7 years. I'm going to tell you this, it's not a slow process to get an ice age. It's instant. Boom, here it is. There was over 1 million animals out in Russia and Alaska that looked like they just got blown apart and frozen, stuck in the tundra. Why? Because methane hydrate came out, and it just blew them all over. And it expanded so fast, it'll be like a atomic bomb of frozen methane air. Its vapor point, negative 161 degrees Celsius. It's almost 300 degrees Fahrenheit. It's cold enough to freeze a woolly mammoth standing up. And whoever wrote this report, sorry if it's in here and I missed it, but I never saw it. It was too tied together, and I read a bunch of these. Just wanted something to show. And so you see it, it's going to be like the movie A Day After Tomorrow, where it expands real quick, fills up, and then it's done, and it'll cool back down, or it'll warm back up. But it's going to happen fast. It's going to be really cold. It's not something that you can just weather out. I mean, you get stuck outside, you're done. Get stuck in a house, you could be done. This is why we are going to have this ice age, and this is why everybody in the world should know about it. And it's not fair that we don't. This is our world too. We have a right to defend. Is that our temperature has gone up drastically. It's not a wonder that we're having global warming or anything like that, because we all know about it. Our hottest 20 years on record are our last 20 years. Within those 20, they jumbled around a little bit, but last 20 has been the hottest 20. And so our air temperature is already past that point where it would set off all the methane hydrate. Now our ocean temperatures, they're trailing. The water's more dense, it takes a little longer to warm up. It's a lot of water. We don't even have ice caps on the North Pole anymore. It's a lake.
maybe coming out of winter we do right now, but they'll be gone in 2 months. Our South Pole is different. It's moved. It's not. If you get a sec, check out Piri Reis. This is how I know that their data's off. Another reason. So A, carbon, they can't test it like that. Does no good. B, we have the Piri Reis maps, which are drawn from the 1500s. 1513 was one of his famous maps, and now that was drawn off maps that were done before that. But he drew the areas that hadn't changed since he drew these maps, or since the maps were originally drawn out, as good as our satellites could do it. And it was attached to South America. It was pulled up the side. Now here's the thing, you won't see this either. I wrote NOAA, and they sent me back. They call it a gold pass, and I got to go in there and look at some of their data that they have that they give to climatologists and stuff. All of the ocean floors are 0 degrees Celsius. They're all 0 degrees Celsius. It doesn't matter. The deepest ocean in the world, Marianas Trench, 0 degrees Celsius. You got shallower spots out there in Russia, 0 degrees Celsius. And when you push water, when it gets a lot of pressure, I think it realigns into a different state, like a plasma state, where it gets compressed. And when it does, it becomes more magnetic. And it becomes dense. And it'll weigh more than rock. And it'll settle down. And when it settles down, becomes magnetic, it's really dense, falls underneath all of the soot, and then you set off something like super volcanoes, and the things that would happen when you flip 1 trillion million tons of iron and turn it the other way, the polarity of the planet, turn it the other way, what would happen? Boom, volcanoes blow up. It would cover the bottom with soot, it would realign, and this angle in this direction with that would allow for stuff like Noah's flood. It would allow for stuff like Atlantis sinking. It would allow for these things. And what I believe is that became really magnetic. Antarctica is on the South Pole because something pulled with the South Pole that had a negative charge. And I could show you when you go to my Antichrist side, or watch my Antichrist movie. It shows how all of the scientists that found all the spectrum of magnetic elements, they're all named right after the apostles in all of the religions. You got to select them from each of the religions. You got the Paul, the Theodore, the Marcus. They're around the different religions. And I know that they're in most of them, but some of them are different characters, because it's all perception of who you are. You look at Lucifer, okay? You look at him in Christianity, he's this negative, terrible thing that comes and just destroys everything, and it's the end. Then you look at and he's number 6, and 6 this and 6 that. Well, the 6-sided crystalline structured number 66 and 67 element holmium that used to be named element X, and then it was named Stockholm, which meant holium in Greek, which is now what it's named, holium. And all of the scientists that founded it were from Stockholm, which is the same place as the Guinness Codex, the Book of the Devil. And its atomic mass is 7/10,000ths off of the weight of the Book of the Devil. Its dimensions line up exactly with its density. It's like line for line. I could sit here and give you 100 facts, and they're all perfect on that. And then so you look at holium, which is the most magnetic property ever. And that being said, I mean, they use it to take neutrons out of atoms. They just suck them out like stealing its soul. You look at a neutron star, and that right there is your Antichrist. And that Revelations is going to be your Planet X. And Planet X, just like the electromagnetic scale and the light, and in all the religions it's the light. And just like Satan is the destructor and he's this terrible thing in Christianity, well, Shiva is the same thing, and she's called the destroyer. And she sings and she just ravages things just like Lucifer, the bringer of the light, the stars. So here we are, the circle of life of a star. Look at it. We have, it starts out as this, red, and it goes over to, massive star, and it goes through the cycle, right? This out right here. Here's the Egyptian gods. And these gods, look at their colors. Look at what they are, the duality. We cycled through in Egypt. We went through Osiris got killed by Set, and then Horus avenged his death, and then you go through this big cycle, and you got Ra and Ottoman, and you got all these things, these people, and if you look, they're changing. Look at their hats. It's the type of energy. It's all frequency. I actually approached this creating a site to show where I got two generator concepts from, where, one of them was water, that I took heat out the air, and byproduct was global cooling, and it created energy. The second one was, out of electromagnetics, and I got it from ancient history, from the civilizations, from what they have in their hieroglyphics. Those pyramids that they symbolize Ra or whatever, nobody stole Ra, okay? Nobody stole them. That's meant for frequency. It's showing you a sine wave. And as these stars are different sizes and different shapes, and they cross other different stars and shapes, they create different sine waves. Okay? Our waves that we get from each of those stars are different. And now you're talking about a three-dimensional ocean of space that's has gravity and all these things that interrupt it. When you run a wave over another wave, it changes it. 3 out of 5 boys will be taken. Yeah, that's not biblical. That's not where it came from first. It's in Egypt thousands of years before that. These zodiac plates, these are symbols, these are signs, this is what it is. And now we're going into a time right now where all ancient civilizations, all of them, every religion, all of them talked about this time, okay? And it wasn't the time of roses, it was the time of the next age. And it talked about a bad thing before it. It was always a revelation, okay? Every single holiday is astronomical. Every single god is astronomical. Across the deities, any of them, they're astronomical. Okay? And what this is saying right now, NIBIRU is your Satan, is your Shiva. It's a six-sided, six-wayed crystal. It's a magnet. Okay? It's singing. Just like she sings. Just like Moses dictated the magnetic side. And it's all about how you perceive it, which one's right. They're all right. They separated the religion with the technology so that nobody would have it all until we were mature enough to make peace. Unfortunately, we're still not mature enough to make peace. We're being just like the original Bible, the Old Testament, in the Tower of Babylon, when we did not care about our neighbor so much, and so we just stepped over people and had no empathy or compassion towards them. We're doing the same thing. And you know what? We're going to hold the blinders on, trying to convince people that, hey, the entire planet before we got here did not
portray these events for nothing. They didn't go build all this stuff. They didn't inset it all in religion for nothing. Okay? This is real. It's going to be an ice age. It's going to. You know, you can say, not in my lifetime, all you want, all the way until you're a popsicle. It's going to happen. And if you listen to this and you please share it, because people need to know, you know. They need to know that, you know, we might be getting steered a little bit wrong, that NASA might not be as smart as we think they are. It's trying to send us to Mars with no magnetic field, which means no Arcadian beat, which means our immune system doesn't work, which means, also it means that we have no radiation, no atmosphere, because NIBIRU, Planet X, science calls it Hercules, it's just ran it over. And the reason that we don't see this giant star coming in the sky is because, you know, well, first it's only like 8 or 10 miles wide, but it's 8 or 10 mile wide magnet. If you take one of them little super magnets, it's very intense. It's 8 or 10 miles wide. The reason that we flooded in December, we had all these alignments that were supposed to be broke down. I'll show you in a decoding one, we knew it was coming in. We were supposed to see it in November. It was there. We saw it in November, and it was supposed to take 5 years to get inside the asteroid belt. We had a terrible alignment in December, and the second one came in. And so anyway, sure enough, it's supposed to be there, 5 years. Well, by the 23rd of that same month, it was like 2 weeks later, okay? We called it the 6th, and that's why Hanukkah starts, okay? These things happen for a reason. Don't let your light go out. In those 2 weeks, it already picked up pace and went the distance of like 5 years, and it affected our moon. And when it affected our moon let go of our Earth, which let go of all the water, which is why we flooded. The 6th of January, 12th day of Christmas, 12's drummers drumming. We had 8,000 earthquakes. We had tornadoes where they weren't at. These events are real, okay? And the reason we didn't see it sooner is because the sun is gold, not hydrogen, okay? If you look up half-life, if you think that hydrogen's there for billions of years, because that didn't happen. And just like Egypt, we're going to go through all these suns, just like Hercules and Perseus and David and Goliath and all those. This Star of David, come on, it's there. And the reason it's small and David was so little and Goliath was huge is because the magnet is little. NIBIRU is little. It's not a giant red thing. It's not. It ran over Mars, and it was like pushing two north poles on a magnet together, and when it popped, when it pushed in till the point of breaking, it blew its atmosphere out. It blew its water all over. That's why it has an ocean. It's not because it caught a comet, like science is saying. Dude, these are supposed to be PhD geniuses? Sorry. But it killed its magnetic field. That's why it's gone. And that's why there's this cloud falling around Nibiru that looks like it's a giant planet. Is because it's huge now that it's got a big cloud of iron dust all over it. But in the middle, it's a magnet. And it's not shown, and it wasn't bright in the sky because it has to rub against the gold like a motor. You could spin copper or spin, any conductor all you want. If you don't put a magnet next to it, it's not going to do anything. And so now that this duality is together, now it's going to shine bright. Now our sun's going to burn hotter. Now it's going to do different things. Here's the twist. It pulled south down, right? It pulled Antarctica down because that's where its orbit is, okay? And the South Pole has been twice now where they thought Lemuria was and Atlantis was. And it looks just like Antarctica, but pulled out of the way. The thing is nobody thinks about it because it's, 5,000 miles in 10,000 years doesn't sound possible. Well, when earthquakes, when all this stuff happens, when it's not sliding on a tectonic plate, when it's getting just moving across, it's cooking. Okay, it's moving fast. Then yes, it can happen much faster. Now, I know Lemuria happening over there by Hawaii, supposedly, is a big wives' tale, that we don't know. It's a myth. Well, we also know this, that there's coral that can only grow in the top 100 feet or so of water. That's almost 2,000 feet down. Okay, so we know stuff sank. We already knew that there's water reservoirs certain places. We know that there's dimensions you can cross. When you speed up a frequency, just like we only see a little bit of the electromagnetic scale, it can go out of that frequency. And when that happens, it goes somewhere. You can't say it just disappears. We only see 3% or something of our known energy. Okay, and this is the magnetism. This is what it is. It's not some dark hocus pocus energy. Okay, it's magnetism, and it moves faster than the speed of light. It's light on a they follow each other all the way up and down the spectrum. Now, we only perceive the light spectrum that we see. When you're outside of that spectrum, you're a cell phone signal. You're a radio tower wave. A microwave. These are all things that we are when you're outside of that spectrum. Well, matter can be the same. Why not? All this stuff is influential. Okay? And here's the thing. That South Pole spin means it's spinning the other way. Our driving spin, our atomic spin that we have matter on today, right now, goes off the spin of our sun. Well, Nibiru is just as much of a star as anything else. It's not a planet. It's a star. And just like in mythology, when, one of the heroes, whether it's Hercules or Beowulf or, any of those heroes, they get beat up, then they go to the underworld and they roam around. Well, this is what happens. They're going to have a duality kind of battle where they're going to gain a lot of energy. This is where we're going to do our big advancement or die. And it's also going to change the beat of our planet, of what we're getting. It's going to change our DNA. Here is evolution. Sorry, Darwin, you were wrong. Sorry, creationists, it changed a lot of times, yes. Okay, here is what it is. You can call it God, I call God geometry of the divines. And energy that goes different shapes as we go around the zodiacs. Imagine each one of them like a wake on a boat. When you cross the big boat before the little boat, you're going to get a different wake. And that wake is going to affect your DNA. And that DNA is going to symbolize, or the frequency you're getting is going to symbolize all of these gods. And when we go through all the different cultures and the religions, we get all of these different types of gods that all symbolize similar things across the board. You can't tell me that, the Mayans never met the Egyptians, never met anybody else. I got a different theory on that. And we'll go over it real quick because I think it is important. I have 76 pages of libraries that were blown up. I don't see Alexander the Great going down to Egypt just to blow up the Alexandria library. I don't see, or Julius Caesar, I'm sorry. I don't see that happening. That doesn't seem like the integrity. What I think happened is we had technology, And we blew all the libraries up so that we didn't have that much technology, but then they left it for us in religion so that when we get smart enough to figure it out, hopefully by this time before we get run over, so we can open our eyes and see it happening. Only thing is we never figured it out because we took everything too literally. Well, they had the technology. They built the things that we haven't built. They done the things that we haven't done. It's in DNA. We have proof, but we choose to ignore it. There is evidence all over the world with the ancient civilizations, but we choose to ignore it. Why? The smartest people that ever lived on this earth died thousands of years ago, and we choose to ignore them. Do you think that Plato and Socrates and all them, they could write tens of thousands of papers and proofs and all these things and not write one date on their paper? We just don't know when they're born by 400 years? No way. That's crazy. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Now, real quick, in the history, the Malkovich cycle, so that being said, we can't carbon date, it doesn't mean anything. Antarctica was not where it was supposed to be, and it's been drawn in the last 500 years not covered in ice, and we couldn't tell till 1950 when we got ultrasound that what it actually that he was right, perfect. We couldn't tell that. And now, so we have these Malkovich cycles and these carbon and, methane and temperature spikes. Now, the temperature precedes the carbon and the methane because of what I said earlier. The temperature rises, and when it gets to a certain point, it domino effect cools everything down. If you watch, it goes builds up, builds up, builds up, boom, drops off really cold, really fast. Like instantly. And this is what we're going to go through. Now, the reason that we can't tell about these ancients, the reason we don't have any proof in steel buildings and this and that, is because when you switch this polarity around, when that spin starts going the other way, it's going to unwind all the atoms into carbon. It's unwinding that way. It's designed to. It's instantaneous decay of elements. Some of you might know what that means. And it's not good. Not for us. Your memory is going to become a little tougher. I'm going to put something out on that. But elements are going to decompose. Properties are going to go other ways. If you go get rid of the digital compass and go get a mechanical one, a magnetic one, and you'll see half my compasses are pulled 180 degrees off of the other ones that they used to be dead on. That means that there's another force, or they're pushing the North Poles and the South Pole on the same side. And my imagination here is that things that were conductive once are going to soon be magnetic when things get twisted around the other way. And there's a design that I pulled out of ancient history that I'm going to draw out, and please look at it. Because when this spin comes and it starts unwinding your head, when just like biblically spoken it goes, and they just spoke blasphemy, well, what do you think a giant magnet to your head's going to do? It's going to make you dumb. And when you have more magnetics or less magnetics or more energy or more electricity, your integrity is going to change. Your mentality is going to change. You're going to change just like if from your grandparents to your parents to you to your kid. There's different mindsets. And it's going to change just like that. That's what's going on. But this is a big one. It's going to be big. And we can be ready for it or not, but this world is nothing, I promise you, nothing like you think. And, I didn't want to be the one to cause any fear or chaos, but you should be afraid. Because every single thing that you know could be 100% different in a matter of months. Everything. This ice age will happen. That I promise you. Why do you think we have Reseed the World? We got Doomsday Seed Foundation in Denmark just put in. Why do you think we have a $255 billion budget on a super collider in the United States and Texas, and we stopped $2 billion short? $255 billion invested, $2 billion short. Well, it allowed them to build a $253 billion hole. You know, just ask yourself, does this make sense? Because I'll show you everything, and I mean, we're talking, I broke it down from time to free energy to it all. Ancient civilizations had it. Religions had it. And be ashamed if we made it this far and didn't get it. But you know, I hope y'all listen to this. I didn't mean to ramble on for this long, but I'm going to show you a clip of the magnetic pole. It's going to show that the South Pole is pulling towards the poles, the metal, where the North Pole used to. And what that's saying is the world is discharging instead of charging up like it has the rest of our lives. So, you know that I'm real. Go share this, please, and go ahead and go out there and get some compasses. Look at Walmart when you're in there and just use one. I mean, and if there's anybody who wants to go to my website, religionistscience.com, I'm transferring over from my other website, and I'm terrible at websites. So if you go over there and it's not all the way finished or doesn't seem complete, that's why I was trying to pick my priorities, and I'm doing this 24/7. So, all right, thanks. Bye.
Okay, what I'm going to show you right here is, if you ever see a compass, I got two of them here so you can't tell me, they're both kind of going just off into wherever they would like, about straight ahead. I just want to pull this up and show you. Here it is, so you know it's not the compass. They both pull the same way to the magnet. And I'm going to show you what's going on. So it's going north. North's that way. Pulling about straight away from us, a little bit to the right. And I want to know why in Washington State we're going exactly towards the sun. Should be going the other way. I'll tell you what happened. So we lost our conductivity with the our connection to the moon, sun, and Earth, because Earth is not a magnet, it's a ferromagnet, and that means it can be a magnet if there's something to make it a magnet. But if something took the connection away from the moon and it stopped pulling through us, we would no longer be a magnet and discharge. And it wouldn't happen fast, but it would happen over time. And I can tell you right here, we're going to go over here and look at this. We're going to put this next to the pole. That should always pull to the pole. Never seen that in our lifetime. And now what happened is, we can tell when we go down here and it turns around, is that the pole is a better conductor than the air. So the magnetism from the ground comes up, goes through the pole easier than the air. Instead of normally it would go in the air into the pole and saturate it. The magnetism inside of the Earth is depleting. It's not continuing to be charged. And that is because there was a planetary object that grabbed a hold of the moon. That's stronger than the moon, and it filled the moon's all of its pull up, and so it had to let go of Earth because it gets a better grip on whatever that's pulling. That means that is a magnet. Check out my website. You will see under the pole flip, give an explanation on that. That is our NIBIRU, or Planet X. It is a real thing. It's coming. It was not supposed to be here in 2012. Nobody said that. If you add back in the 1260 days biblically, it's mapped out perfect. Just gotta know what you're looking at. And you gotta pay attention and not just listen to any yamhead you find on YouTube. Think what makes sense.